And you know, you mentioned a term to me during our interactions over the last year, and that term or that concept is pain is my friend.
It is.
Pain is my friend. And, you know, when you shared that with me, you also kind of shared the notion that you climbed Mount Kilimanjaro on a fake ankle.
Artificial.
I say fake, I know it. On an artificial ankle. On a fake ankle, you climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, and you mentioned the concept of pain is my friend. Talk a little bit about, well, first tell me about, you know, what made you decide to go to, you know, Tanzania and climb Mount Kilimanjaro, one, on an artificial ankle. That's one. But then two, how did you come to realize pain is your friend?
Well, all the progress, mostly spiritual, that I have received in last many years has been because I have this companion who is always with me. He never leaves me. So I feel so secure within that I have someone with me at all the time. And he's my pain. He is my chronic pain. He is my best friend. He is always there, never deserts me. Okay? Yes, it does, you know, add complications at certain times when I want to go from here to there or be able to do things. I can't because of it. But overall, I think he has given me what I needed. And as far as the trip to Africa, it's funny. When I first went to Africa, this was many years ago, and I've been there 5 times, someone told me, once you go to Africa and come back, you will never be the same person ever again. And I had traveled fairly extensively, and I didn't understand it. Well, one has to experience it. And I still don't know why such is the case. Probably because that's where we all originated. So when you get back to your roots,
that's right.
How can you be the same person ever again?
I agree.
So here I am in Kenya and Tanzania doing the safari, which, you know, is a thing to do.
That's right. That's right. I went on one.
So I had planned on it for many years, and finally it happened, and I'm there. And when I finished the safari, I see this guy, almost a godlike figure, up in the sky, just slowly piercing the clouds, and that tip beginning to show up, and it is covered with ice. And I'm like, I'm with a colleague who's traveling with me. We are on a group tour. I said, Sandy, what is that? And she said, that's Mount Kilimanjaro. And I was like totally flabbergasted. I had envisioned when I was healthy that one day I will go and hike Mount Kilimanjaro. All these years later, I'm 60 years old. I've had all these health issues, and I now have an artificial ankle which had been just installed 8 months ago.
Okay.
At North Carolina, Durham Research Hospital, and I have strict instructions to walk very small amounts on a flat surface. Very limited. These were FDA regulations that the doctor is suggesting. And here I am in Kenya and Tanzania, and I happened to see what seems like a message to me. And I took that challenge.
Wow.
And I hired a company, and they arranged at the last minute a group tour of 1. So I am the only person, and of course we had a crew of 7 because it takes that many to take the party up, whether it's party of one
or a party of 10. Mm-hmm.
They have to have that many people. So here we are, and I start, and it is supposed to be a week-long trip, up and down, and I just wanted to set my foot on it because I thought I could do that, and that's probably the safest thing to do.
Hold on, so you never, the initial thought was to not summit?
No.
It was just, I want to set foot on
Mount Kilimanjaro.
And that's it.
And that's it. And it just so happened that Gilbert, who was my guide, he was in his 30s, very strong built, and he knew nothing about my health issues. He knew nothing about my artificial ankle installed 8 months ago, and he told me I should try one more day. And I listened to him, and I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro for day 2. At the end of the day, each day they have huts that they set up for you to where you sleep. And this is why you need all these people, you know, to carry the food, to cook for you, because you are expected to eat a lot of calories. It's a tremendous amount of physical effort. Water and what have you, because they don't have anything. The generators, the lights, everything, the fuel, everything has to be carried, and that's why they need so many porters. But this guy every night will come and talk with me and convince me that I can go one more day.
One more day.
And in so doing, 6 days later, I am standing at the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro at age 60 with an artificial ankle. And from all my research, I haven't found another case of someone of that age with an artificial ankle who has summited Kilimanjaro.
And what's powerful about that was the fact that you hired this crew to start the journey.
Correct.
But you started without any intention of actually summiting.
Correct.
But every day, that little voice that Gilbert kind of placed inside of you gave you the encouragement to take it up to that next level each day. I think back, and it's funny, you know, because I look for connections. Like, that's my whole thing. My name is not Gilbert. I'm Mike.
Right.
But I think back to that moment in the gym when you were hunched over, grimacing in pain. Everything around you was moving. And me just randomly doing what I feel like I'm called to do. I see a guy hunched over in pain. But maybe, and it was just a summit from the bench in the gym locker room to your car. But you needed that encouragement.
I did.
To get from the locker room to the car, just like Gilbert gave you the encouragement to go from putting your foot on the bottom to reaching that next plateau. Every day. Every single day. And you also did not let us know that, and you shared with me this scenario, that you were kicking and screaming. You know, each time, and you probably had a few, you know, 4-letter words for him. Each time that he mentioned that you should go another day, you're like, okay, right? But that's what you were needing. Correct. And that spoke to you in a way that you got out of your own way and allowed that little voice to speak to something inside of you that was no longer Harry.
Correct.
Which had become Haresh. Because Harry wouldn't have listened. Harry would have told him, you know what, blankety blankety blank, I put my foot on this mountain, thank you for your service, here's your tip, I'm gone. But because that void had started to become filled, and those layers started to become peeled, and Haresh started to emerge, you were able to receive Gilbert, which then allowed you to reach this peak that potentially puts you in a category of very few, not potentially, it puts you in a category of very few people in the world.
Yep. And the funny thing is, because he had been guiding tourists for years, he knew how stupid tourists are, can be. So I wanted to walk with him, and he was walking exceedingly slow, because the mantra is in Swahili, pole pole, and
Pole pole.
and it means slowly, slowly.
That's right.
Because you do not want pulmonary or cerebral edema, which is what some tourists who think they are strong and young and get to the summit in 2 days end up with. There is a reason to why you must take steps slowly, and he always wanted me to follow him. And from time to time, because he was so disgustingly slow, I would walk by his side and he will tell me, Haresh, behind me. And there were times when I wanted to tell him off. Trust me.
I know you did. See, that was Harry coming back a little bit.
There you go. Harry, you wanted to tell Gilbert, get the F out of here. But I listened. And there was a reason. Because I needed that. I needed to be trained to be the kinder, milder, gentler, mellower Haresh.
You listened. And it's interesting. Again, I look for connections and themes. Your father gave you a path and you listened.
Yes.
When you met Hannah, you all moved to America. You wanted to move back.
Yes.
But she wanted to stay. She had a vision.
Correct.
You listened.
Correct.
You became Harry. You didn't quite listen.
Correct.
The accident happened. You were forced to listen at that moment.
Had no choice.
You had no choice because
I couldn't
you
go to the bathroom without the help of a nurse at my home.
That's right. You listened.
Yes.
You got to Kilimanjaro.
Yes.
And you listened.
Yes.
So Harry represents this mask or these layers. Haresh represents the layers being pulled off.
Yep.
But each aspect in which I see that you listened, you were representing Haresh.
Yes.
When you created Harry, you weren't listening.
Correct.
So when you think about this summit, when you think about getting to the top of this mountain,
Correct.
that you never intended on
Correct.
getting to from the get-go,
Well, in my book, it was not feasible.
it wasn't feasible.
You know,
it wasn't possible.
artificial ankle. You don't summit Kilimanjaro.
But you listened.
Did.
You listened. You got to the top because you listened.
Correct.
After you got to the top, you accomplished something that didn't seem possible.
Right.
Because you listened. What was then spoken to you? When I say spoken to you, spoken to your soul at that moment.
Well, at that time, I felt the closest to my daddy's spirit. Not that I'm ever too far or he too far from me, but that was the time where I felt I finally, the whole journey had culminated into the final phase of where now I must follow in his footsteps. He was a giver his entire life. From the time he lost his father at his age 5 to the time when he passed on, all he had done is, whether it was his mother, his 2 sisters, or his children, he had only given. And now was my time to start the giving. And that's when this whole process of giving entered my domain.